Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pursuing Your Purpose.
You already know me, but I am Alex Ifland, social work and political science major here at Rutgers Camden.
My name is Aaliyah Jones. I am a social work and psychology major at Rutgers Camden.
My name is Trisha Colon Santiago, and I am a social work major at Camden Rutgers.
So for the agenda of this workshop, we'll be looking at different ways to observe your purpose and find what your purpose means. So our first objective is, again, defining what your purpose means and what it can look like, learning different ways to approach the pursuit of your purpose, practice finding and planning for your purpose, and connecting the pursuit of purpose to the practice of leadership. So, what is purpose? Purpose is sometimes has this overwhelming, um, I'm so sorry. When you say purpose, it can have a heavy meaning behind it, but we want to break it down into three different points. So, purpose can be looked at as your natural desires in life, your intrinsic motivations, and existential meaning. So, in regards to your natural desires in life, this could be what are you naturally inclined to do? Do you naturally like cooking? Are you more prone to sports? What you naturally gravitate towards, your interests. Intrinsic motivations are what you feel motivated to do. Do you feel motivated to go up and go for a run in the morning? Do you feel motivated to complete an assignment because it makes you feel good? Learning makes you feel good. So it's the different internal motivations you have that satisfy your psychological needs. And then your existential meaning is your positionality within society. Um, how your purpose can help society or how your purpose can contribute to the environment around you and the community around you.
So, a little bit more about intrinsic motivations and extrinsic motivations. Like Aaliyah said, intrinsic motivations are those internal goals that satisfy your basic psychological needs. And also, I would say physiological too. So, you could consider like hunger, sleep, things like that to be intrinsic motivations, things that contribute to your inner well-being. And outside of those basic needs, there's also what contributes to your sense of satisfaction, your sense of pride, your sense of self. So something you're doing an activity, if you're intrinsically motivated, because you enjoy the activity. You're doing it for the sake of doing it because it's something that you like, something that you want, and not something that is being told that you have to do. And you have to like meet some sort of expectation externally, which brings us to extrinsic motivations, which would be those external factors that are telling you, like maybe a quota to meet, something that you have to do to avoid getting in trouble or getting a bad grade, some kind of requirement maybe from a boss, from family, something that doesn't come from within you as to why you want to do it. And so the example here is completing work for money. And these are really important to identify, and they don't look the same for everyone. Some people can have something that motivates them intrinsically that doesn't necessarily feel the same for another person that might be more extrinsic for them. So it's really on an individual basis, but understanding and identifying and differentiating between the two can really help you understand what you value, what your passions are, and what your purpose looks like, because the intrinsic is the one to focus on because it's so much more fulfilling and is really what the basis of your purpose would be as opposed to extrinsic.
Ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese concept that originated from Okinawa, and its meaning is a reason for being. Ikigai is the intersection of what you love, your passions, your mission in life, what you're good at, what the world needs, and your profession, and what you're paid for ultimately. Ikigai is finding happiness, satisfaction, and joy in day-to-day activities that just make you feel good inside and out. It's finding meaning in the smaller things in life. Um, Ikigai gives you a reason to live life even in your most darkest days. This Japanese concept also refers to our purpose in life, what makes life worthwhile or gives meaning to your life.
Exactly. So it's that marriage of all of these different things, like Trisha said, that what are you good at, what do you love, what the world needs, and what you're paid for. So these can look like different things in overlap. So what you're good at and what you love could be your passion, a hobby that you really, really enjoy, but then tying that in with what you can be paid for and what the world needs, and bringing it all together in the center and having all of those things overlap into your purpose really makes it so much more fulfilling, and makes it really enhances the quality of life and the sense of satisfaction and happiness.
Identifying your Ikigai. What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? What can you be paid for? Would anyone like to answer any of these questions?
I think a good way to look in trying to identify your Ikigai is, here's a basic example. We're all in school, so we may all have different intrinsic or extrinsic motivations as to why we're in school. But choosing your major, for example, should be a question of choosing something that you love to do. In defining, sorry, also looking at the intersectionality of what you're good at. So I personally am a psychology major. Psychology majors, that can be defined into so many different aspects. You can look into a therapy aspect of it, or you can do organizational psychology when you're looking at companies and how the marketing of that looks. So per se, say I'm good at interacting with people and talking with people. So maybe I want to take more of a therapy approach to it. And then defining what does the world need. So maybe considering what populations do I specifically want to work on. um, and yeah, yeah.
And if everyone could take a little bit of time as part of this workshop to just think through each of these questions for yourself individually and write down your answers to each and see where the overlaps are. What can you identify in what you love that also answers the question of what you're good at, um, and how you see yourself in your role in the world. Is it something that you would like to contribute to the world? Is it something that you can be paid for? And go down the line, and really you can answer all the questions together or individually, and then cross-reference and see where the overlaps are, and whether you think that that feels like something that you would like to explore more, something that you maybe hadn't thought about before that you could look into, because we're not given all the answers about like what there is out there to be, even just job wise, to start. So you'd be surprised at what you can be paid for that answer all the other three questions, and that maybe you're on the path for just focusing on that last one, what can you be paid for, um, that doesn't have those. And maybe you can make a shift there and feel a little bit better and a little more purposeful in your life. To go on to values and subjective well-being. So I've linked an article here. I'll have it in the resources at the end as well. And it's really great about understanding this concept of subjective well-being and how it's coming to the forefront of the way that we look at and measure and define happiness. Because I feel like so much of success, especially in the individualistic American society that we live in, is defined by economic markers, financial gains, how successful you are, and how happy you are. Is usually measured by those things. People say money can buy happiness, and while it can buy like safety and security, we really want to focus on how to be happy without that as the central driving force. That's going to look different for everyone. That's why it's called subjective well-being. But it's focusing on that is going to be 1,000 times more fulfilling than focusing on money to fix problems and being the fulfilling factor in life. Because often it's not. And also, the ways that you get it might not be fulfilling either. It might actually hurt your subjective well-being. So that's what we're focusing on first and foremost. You want to identify your individual values and what enhances your quality of life and work with those questions that we went over previously, and anything else that you think is relevant and contributes to that identification process. And then you want to take those values, those passions, um, those job prospects that fit all that, and you want to define some specific goals to achieve within your purpose. And that doesn't even have to be job based. It could be hobby based. It could be I want to learn this new language because I love learning languages, and I want to do it for me to enhance my sense of being connected to the world and connected to people, if that's something that you value, um, as opposed to a job saying you have to be bilingual in order to get the promotion. So you set specific goals to achieve within your purpose, and you work towards those. Then you would explore possible strategies of putting your purpose into practice. And again, this can look all kinds of different ways. Two people can have the exact same purpose values, um, and yeah, purpose and values, and then their path to those purpose and values and the way they work towards them can be totally different, and they can still both be valid. So it's really going to depend on what works best for you, and what you feel most inclined and fulfilled doing. And then you would implement that plan of pursuing your purpose and practice keeping it at the center of your work. That's really important too, because we can easily get caught up in the minutia of day-to-day tasks and lose sight of what our motivating factors are, especially if our shift comes away from that intrinsic motivation and our purpose into those external factors where we're worrying about the bottom line, the sales quotas, and all these other things that kind of get in the way, that take away from our connection to our purpose and to who we want to be in the world. So you want to regularly look back, which is the last point, on whether the path you're on or what you're doing in your day to day or year to year is in line with your purpose, and then you can change or adapt it if you need to. That also goes for if your purpose changes. We evolve as people all the time, year to year, day to day, even. It's okay for your purpose to change. But for me, I would so much rather be spend 5 years in all in on one purpose that's making me feel fulfilled and really connected with my life, and then have my purpose change, and then I'd spend however long pursuing that other purpose, than have spent those 5 years not connected to any purpose at all that meant anything to me, because that feels like, I won't say it's a waste, but you know what I mean. It doesn't feel nearly as um, well spent in my mind, as satisfying of time for me to have towards something, even if it's not my purpose anymore. at least I was connected to it then, and it really meant something to me.
Finding and maintaining balance. Acknowledge and accept you cannot do everything all the time. Be sure to manage yourself and not time. Just say no. Schedule time for yourself. And finally, live by your purpose, not anyone else's.
Exactly. For managing yourself, I just want to add, I think that's so good to put into perspective, because there's never enough time, if we're being honest. Um, but and when you block out your time, you can block out all the time in the world perfectly, exact schedule, fit everything in, say you do, like as if you do have enough time. But if you're not managing yourself, if you're not managing your needs, both physiological and psychological, you're going to get to that time where you have to do something and you might not be able to do it. You might be too tired. You maybe haven't kept up with your nutrition. You maybe just need some self-care. You're not mentally able to concentrate. So taking care of yourself, and not just for your productive, but for your own well-being is more important than worrying about checking off every box that you have to on any kind of time management schedule of tasks.
And remember, you can say no. I mean, you don't, it doesn't have to be in a confrontational way. It doesn't have to be in a negative way. You could just say, I'm so sorry. I'm not able. Say no to extra activities, extra assignments. Just keeping in mind that, you know, you're setting boundaries, and you say no to everything that's outside of those boundaries. If you can't make the time, if you can't do it, you know just say no, in the politest manner possible.
Right. And sometimes it can be hard to know what to say no to, because you may want to do something, or you may think you,
Right.
or someone else may want you to. But I think it's important to bring that back to, how does it align with your purpose? Is it in line with your values? Is it going to get you to feel fulfilled? And obviously, not everything will, but is it going to contribute then to that overall purpose? So maybe not every assignment in school feels great to do, but is it contributing to your overall purpose of getting that degree to get you to be able to be out in the world and really get into some kind of career, or something where you can practice your purpose every day as your job. And we want to connect this back to leadership as well. So a skilled leader is able to identify and engage others in shared values and purpose. And purpose-led leadership is more effective and people-centered, which enhances the collaborative relationship and its outcomes. Have you ever had a job where the boss had a really great sense of purpose, something that you all bought in on together, something that they were able to motivate you with as a team and as on a very human level, that wasn't just numbers, um, uh, completing the menial tasks of what, especially like retail comes to mind for me.
Mhm.
I've had both kinds of bosses that had that purpose and motivated me for the most mundane job I would love to go into, because we all loved what we did, and we came together to do that well together, and that felt really satisfying, even if it was uh, electronics at Target. But then I've also had bosses where, in the same capacity, electronics retail, where it was all about the sales, it was all about the quotas, and those external factors that really burned out my drive in this case, for what I loved about that job, what I loved to do, and what I valued in that position. So it's really important, even in the same job, even if it's something that is ultimately not what you want to do for the rest of your life, you can find value, and you can come together as a team, especially if you're in the leadership role, to really enhance that value and enhance that day-to-day experience. And then it just makes people happier in that job. It increases retention and increases productivity in ways that are not even really measurable necessarily, but you can see it, you can feel it, the difference. Does anyone have anything else to add for what to look at for purpose-led leadership?
I think when considering this connection to leadership, it's important to kind of go back to the model we showed earlier of the Ikigai, and just seeing where the intersectionality of something you love to do, or the values you believe, the values and beliefs you have, and how you can instill them within the environment that you're currently in. Just to kind of extend off of the example Alex gave, in which something as mundane as, working retail, it's not something that we may always feel passionate about. However, our desire, going back to that intrinsic motivation, our desire to make people feel better, we can install that within our environment, within our work position. That customer service, I personally used to work customer service, and sometimes it can make a difference in the questions you ask and building that relationship and making people feel better. Um, so again, go back and look at the model, and maybe look at some of the notes you wrote down as to what you love to do and how that connects to what the world needs right now, and seeing how you can further a leadership role. And also remembering you don't have to have necessarily a leadership title to be a leader in these positions, and that your purpose can really speak to your being as a leader.
Exactly, well said.
So, putting your purpose into action, we've discussed various points of which and how you can put your purpose into action. So, for practice keeping your purpose at the center of your life and work, it kind of touches back into that connection to leadership that we just discussed, and how we may be put in these environments where we may not necessarily deem as aligned to our purpose, but it's something that we have to do, such as having a job and um, bringing in financial so you can support yourself, your basic needs. But you can find your purpose within these spots. As I mentioned, some making other people feel better. That may be a value, a purpose that you feel you have. Just keeping that aligned at the center of your work, and practice putting it there so that what you do doesn't lose value. As Alex mentioned earlier, you don't want to go back and look that you were 5 years somewhere and that you didn't have your purpose, you weren't serving your purpose to any extent. So adapting your plans to keep in line with your purpose, that kind of goes back and retouches on the slide Trisha talked about, in which we're maintaining and finding this balance. And something to that is saying no. I know with Zoom calls and this virtualness that we're all in currently, it's very easy to say yes, because it only takes about 2 seconds to hop into one Zoom call to another. But it's looking at, do you need to have 50 Zoom calls in a day? We may all want to help somebody, but these may not be serving ourselves or serving our purpose. Attending a workshop, or attending a Zoom call in which you really don't necessarily have to be there, or doesn't align to what you want to do, or it doesn't serve you. So making sure that you're readjusting your current environment to fit the needs of your purpose. And then what I find most importantly is finding others with common person purpose and building on it together. Having that sense of community can really help you in the long run. As I will say, as Americans, because America is an individualistic society, it's very easy to think that you kind of need to do these things as an individual yourself. However, it's very, very important to have a community around you to help support you in this journey, and that finding your purpose is not clear cut and distinct. It's not an easy process, and it's not going to take a week. It's not going to take a month. It can very much take your entire life, but having that community around you can really help in keeping purpose at the center of your life and readjusting your plans. As I mentioned earlier, it's easy to say yes to all these Zoom calls. However, me personally, having a friend to say, hey, Lee, it's okay if you don't attend the Zoom call, keeps me aligned with my purpose. Hey, let me focus on something that has more to do with my purpose.
Right, and you can learn so much from other people who are pursuing the same purpose, or even if it's a totally different purpose, like how do they do it? How do they find their purpose? I think mentors are so valuable in that, and you'd be surprised where you can find them. Um, so seeking out ways to connect with people, just in general, and learn from them will likely serve your purpose in the long run, even if you don't share the same purpose. And Savannah, do you have any questions or comments, or want to go over any of the slides and any of the questions that we had?
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask a question about, because you guys just talked about like community and having one around you during your pursuing your purpose. And I wondered if like any of you guys had like personal stories that someone, a mentor or anything helped you find your purpose, or even helped you keep on track with that purpose, even at Rutgers Camden, or somewhere that's not a usual mentor to have?
Yes, definitely. I'm glad that you asked that question, Savannah, because I actually went back to school at the age of 40. I worked for the state of New Jersey. I had been there about 18 years then at that time. And we had a new local office manager, and she called me into her office for a meeting. I was really anxious and nervous because I said, why is the new big boss calling me into her office for a meeting I had no idea about? And she called me in there to share with me what she felt my purpose should be, and how she was looking into me, my work ethic, my years with the division, and how she noticed that I only had some college. And she even looked into my education, and it was just so encouraging for someone who didn't know anything about me, didn't know me, to encourage me and push me. And the very next day, actually in the morning, I went to register for Camden County College and started my classes there. She surprised me at my graduation a year, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago at Camden County College. She surprised me at graduation. She still roots for me. She still calls me to check in on me. Um, and she tells me that when I graduate from Rutgers next May, that she will be there as well. She's a great support system, and she encouraged me. And that, to me, it almost helped me because I got lost in marriage and having children at an early age. So it helped me and finding my purpose again, and even though the struggle's been real, especially with COVID, I know I'm pursuing my purpose right now by pursuing my education.
Thank you for sharing, Trisha. That's wonderful. And I think something I want to highlight from your story is finding or listening out for people who see potential in you that maybe you didn't see in yourself. That's how I came across my first mentor. Um, I was working at Rutgers Camden in a student worker position, and struggling with school, feeling lost, not sure whether to continue or what to do with my life. And my boss at the time saw in me something more than I saw in myself, and he was able to show that to me and to give me the opportunity to express that, to try that out, to explore what I could do and what I could be in these different ways, and to adapt my position to what fit and what worked, and to continually challenge me and grow in ways that felt really fulfilling and not just something that he needed to get done, but something that we could work towards together very collaboratively. And that really lit a fire in me to do the work that I'm doing in today, and to share that with other people. Um, Good bosses are almost always good leaders. So they don't have to be your boss. They could be anyone in your life, really, or anyone on the adjacent to your life, like, or out there for you to find. Um, Friends can be mentors, uh, classmates. Um, yeah, so it's just finding people who are passionate about your passions is a good way to start, because they will have some insight and some expertise into what you want to do, and can maybe help you figure out where you fit in that purpose and that process.
To kind of extend off what Alex just said, um, finding somebody who's passionate, not just about your purpose, but you as a being, I think is very important in terms of that community and support. You're obviously, as you go through life, going to experience different communities. You're going to immerse yourself in different environments, especially in terms of college. It's so much a different environment as different clubs can count. But me personally, my mentor, who's actually the director of my high school marching band, very passionate about me as a person and just seeing success. So it's something as simple as like going to school and finding college. There was a lot of factors that played into it, and I think I was very overwhelmed by it. However, I wasn't aware that I was overwhelmed by it. So I was motivated to go to these places and applying for these places, and nothing, half of them weren't aligned to my purpose as to what I wanted to do. But it's my school counselor telling me one thing, my mom telling me another thing, me thinking I need to do another thing to quote unquote be successful. But it was really him at the end of the day that kind of reminded me that, hey, look at your situation. Also look at what you want to do as a purpose and understand that, you may not go where you want to go. However, can this place fulfill your needs at the current moment? And I think that really had me kind of look at my life differently as a whole, to say, because I started to realize that I can be involved in different things, and kind of going back to the intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. Obviously, we're going to have to do things we don't per se want to do just to fulfill our basic needs. But I can be in these environments and still find a sense of purpose there. But as long as I'm pursuing my purpose, I'll be able to grow from these environments, even if it does initially have an extrinsic motivation. And like I said, well, I didn't say, but my mentor is somebody I always hold near and dear to my heart, and still my mentor to the end of this day. And I can sit there easily, tell him I'm involved with X, Y, and Z, and he'll literally be like, Lee, you're just doing that just because. You can actually slow your roll and spend your time with one thing or two things, or these things aren't necessarily aligned with your purpose. And again, to kind of touch on the extrinsic and intrinsic motivations, it's very easy, I feel like, within our society specifically, to kind of let the extrinsic motivations begin to outweigh your intrinsic motivations. And that's where kind of that community and support really comes in. And again, people who are passionate, not just about your purpose, but you as a being, because they'll always realign you and bring you back to realize that maybe your scale's a little unbalanced. Maybe you need to take a step back and reevaluate everything you're involved with. I think now maybe as a society, we can say that the pandemic really has kind of forced us to look through that lens a little bit deeper, in terms of what we're involved in, what matters to us. A lot of people are gaining like deeper values of family and whatnot. So I think in terms of like finding community and finding support, just finding people who are passionate about your being. And even if you're not able to find that specifically, maybe find people who are passionate about the different things within your purpose. And again, kind of going back to Ikigai model of you can have different kinds of purposes and your purposes can be in different places, but finding people who are specifically aligned, like, you know, you guys can have the same purpose of wanting to help people, but how you get there is different, or you guys can be going down the same path but have different purposes. So finding communities in those different pathways.
I also have a second question to kind of like follow up with all you guys. You guys all kind of spoke about obviously the community and finding a good community. And I think a lot of people from college really found that good community in their college base with their friends and their peers. And especially during this hard time, a lot of people went back home and experienced maybe a different feeling of what like of pursuing their purpose again and trying to find that. And some people don't have the best stable household, and sometimes they kind of leave to get a more positive outlook on their purpose, and sometimes at home or in other places they get more negative impacts. So like what advice would you give someone trying to keep on pushing to their purpose, even though in these settings they can deal with a lot more negative things going around them and people saying negative things to them?
I think this is something that my best friend actually kind of struggles with, and a lack of community and support and family to really kind of support her as a person. I always remind her just to do what's best for her, and that's obviously a lot easier said than done. But again, it's not to be repetitive, but keeping the purpose at your purpose at the center of what you're doing. And I think everyone should strive as a part of their purpose is to keep themselves happy. So pursuing your happiness, and keeping that aligned. It's very hard when you don't have the community support, the familial support, or you know the friendships around you to keep you in tune with that. Which is why I'm kind of happy that we have this growing awareness and want to increase mental health. But trying to keep yourself happy, I feel like maybe that's the simplest way to say it. Without getting into too detailed into everybody's situations, but trying to make sure doing things that make you happy, even if it's that's petting your dog, going for a walk. Yeah.
Right. And I kind of see purpose more as a means rather than an end, or some blend between the two, where it's always an ongoing practice of evaluating, reevaluating, adjusting, practicing it, assessing how you feel at any given time and what makes you feel good, and that can change too, and what makes you not feel so good. So it's finding joy at any point in your life. It's not just, okay, well, I'll have achieved my purpose when I have reached this milestone, when I've gotten this career, when I'm doing this work. No, you can be living your purpose way before any of that. You can live your purpose. Um, yeah, I hesitate to say every day. I mean, like, I think you can, even if you're not doing things that necessarily align with it, because you still hold that purpose. You still know who you are better than you would if you weren't. You would probably be more able to handle the hard times when you have that. Ooh, sorry, my light. More able to handle the hard times and those times in between, when you have that sense of self, that resiliency, and that purpose to drive you and look forward and to find, you know, the diamonds in the rough and between the rock and the hard place and all of that, it just makes life, I would hope, more fulfilling um, in most circumstances. Not all necessarily, but in most circumstances, rather than being in the same circumstances without purpose.
Finally, everyone has a purpose in life. Not everyone is going to have a great support system. With this COVID, it's been hard on a lot of people. A lot of people are depressed, stressed, suicidal. It's important to find and keep hope in whatever pursuing your individual purpose means for you in life. And even with all the negativity, to find the positive things and hold on to them. You know, find the light in the darkness, and you know, and not find anyone, find anything. You know, thankfully we have social media, so there's great support systems on social media. There's great support systems. You can Google anything, you can YouTube anything, and thank God that we have that at our fingertips right now, especially with the world being the way it is right now. So Savannah, you know, that was a great question, and for me it was just like, you know, people just got to hold on to hope, and and just hold on to what their purpose is and what makes them happy and what makes them smile and laugh, you know, and what makes them have joy inside their heart, you know, regardless of not having a great support system or not having great friends. You know, thankfully we have ILA. We're a great team. Michael is a great leader. You know, and hopefully other Rutgers students, and even their family and friends can join in, and you know, so if you want to make progress and fulfilling your purpose in life, um come to next week's workshop. It's about goal setting. It's at Tuesday at 5 p.m. and Wednesday morning at 11:20 a.m. And you know, Savannah, maybe you can share with other people as well, you know, the great support system that we have together in ILA.
I just want to make one more point. I kind of just thought about it a little bit more. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the word purpose can have this very heavy meaning behind it that we don't necessarily understand. It's okay not to know your purpose. I think that's something that's commonly felt maybe within this generation or current society, but not outwardly expressed as much. Having your purpose, knowing what you want to do in life, these are big questions, and questions that again don't take a X amount of time to find the answer to. I think immersing yourself in different communities and finding that leader in which you adapt to, those places where you can see yourself reflected in what they're doing, what their values are, the actions that they pursue in their everyday lives and activities. So finding those different communities, being okay or trying to be comfortable with going in different communities. You don't have to stay set to one place just because you know you were there for a certain amount of times. Do what you best feel within yourself, what keeps you happy, again, kind of going back to that point, but also understanding it's okay not to know and just trying to be on that journey to self-discovery, you'll eventually figure out the answer along the way.
Exactly. There's going to be a degree of trial and error, and that's normal. For some people more than others, because for some people's purpose might not be as readily obvious to them. And that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not out there. It doesn't mean you don't have something that you can rally yourself around, and feel good about, and pursue, that answers all, was it 4 or 5 of those questions of the what do you love, what are you good at, um, what does the world need, and what can you get paid for. There is something out there for everyone, I think, even if it's not, probably even more than just one thing. I would say. Oh, and role models. I would say role models. So we maybe not be able to be active in our purpose right now, or our plans have changed, our plans have been put on hold because of COVID, or family situations, or having to move back home, or finances. But I think that you can still learn a lot and grow in your purpose, um, by finding those communities. And even if don't have access to those communities, like, find someone doing what you want to do, or someone you identify with. See what they're doing, see how they got there, see if you can get in contact with them, or even if you can't, like, I don't know, they're famous or something, then follow their career, see the ways that, what they do does and doesn't work for you, because that's another form of trial and error that doesn't necessarily have to involve your direct action. But we do have to wrap up. Thank you all for joining us. I really appreciated this conversation, and I hope you all got something out of it. Do we want to have any closing thoughts from anyone else?
I just wanted to thank Savannah for joining us today. Thank you guys. It was a great workshop.
Thank you, Savannah, for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed our presentation.